Hey, sports card fans, it's John, Wade Boggs fan. Hope you're all doing well. I don't normally like to do rant type videos. This one, I call it a mini rant. It's more of an annoyance or little pet peeve that I have when I take a look at certain eBay listings. I do a good number of videos where I take a look at the top 10 PSA vintage sales for a given month, or the top 10 most valuable cards from a certain set. So I look at a lot of eBay sold listings, and I use a lot of the images of those cards in my videos. Now, this isn't something that happens all the time, but it happens enough that it gets to me, and I felt like doing a video about it. Not that this video is going to change anyone. I'd like it to, but I don't have any expectations that people seeing this video are necessarily going to change their ways. But what annoys me are pictures of cards that are just terrible pictures, just absolutely terrible pictures of cards. And these aren't cards that are fairly inexpensive, let's say $50, $100. These are cards that sell for several hundred or even several $1,000s, and the images are just terrible. Now, from a buyer's standpoint, you may say, hey, John, I love those listings, because that deters maybe more people from being interested in that listing, and maybe I can swoop in if it's an auction, maybe get it fairly cheap. If it's a buy it now or best offer, maybe they'll accept a fairly low offer because of the image. I don't know. I'm talking about from the aspect of the seller. As a seller, you want the most amount for the card that you put up for sale. Makes sense. So why not put the best effort in showing off that card? Now, maybe that card has some flaws. Maybe it's off center a little bit. Maybe there's some issues with the corners. But I would rather see a clear copy of the card and make an informed decision about whether I want to go after that card or not. And the card is what it is, okay? Why try to hide it? Now, I'm not accusing these people that post terrible photos of purposely trying to hide potential flaws in a card. I just think I don't know if it's being lazy or thinking that they just can't get a clear picture of a card. It's not that hard. You don't have to have an expensive scanner. You can do it on your phone. If you're having trouble getting a clear picture on your phone of a card that you want to list, I'm sure there are videos out there. Search Google, search YouTube. I'm sure there's videos or information out there of how to take good pictures for eBay listings, something like that. I don't think you have to spend a whole lot of money to take quality photos of cards that you want to list on eBay or any other auction site for that matter. Now, there are a lot that do a great job, but for those that don't do high quality photos, I'm not talking about sellers that have really low feedback, that maybe they're just starting off. Maybe this is the first time they're selling cards and they're not sure what to do. These are some sellers that have several hundred or several thousand feedback and multiple cards listed. And what I found is some of these listings, the images are fine, but other ones, I don't know what it is that they just don't take nice photos of their cards. And I have just a couple examples here of things that I've seen. I'm sure you've seen these as well. The first one here is, they'll have a card in one of the plastic sleeves. Well, you do that and you're going to get wrinkles, and it's going to be a lot harder to show a nice clear picture. Why take a picture of a card in a plastic sleeve like this? Maybe a one touch, or not a one touch, but one of the superior fit sleeves that is tight around the sleeve. That may be fine, but this loose stuff, just take it out of the plastic bag. You'll get a better picture of it. How many times have you seen an image where instead of right, shot right at the card, it's on an angle like this? You see, this is the image, or maybe this is the image, and you sometimes, depending on the card design, you can't tell the true centering. I've even seen ones where, again, probably to avoid getting just a not clear picture, they'll do one where they're looking down at the card. So you see one like this, or maybe you see a listing like this. Or I've even seen ones, it's hard to show here, but they'll take a picture from the front, but you see their reflection. So you see like a shadow over the card. Again, there's ways to remove that shadow. I've tried it as well. If you have light ahead of, behind you, put something, a piece of paper or something to block the light, and just let the camera do its work. There's ways to do this. On a horizontal card, how many times have you seen a listing where this is the image of the card, like just like this, on this sharp angle, or maybe they'll do it this way? And I understand maybe while they're doing it to try to avoid glare or a reflection of their camera or something, but there are better ways to avoid that than just showing pictures like this. Also, how many times have you seen a listing where you actually see the person's hand, and sometimes their fingers go over the border of the card? I don't want to see people's hands, and sometimes, to be quite honest, people's hands are just, they're dirty and stuff. Just keep your hands out of it, okay? I've even seen ones where I swear they just throw the card on their bed and take a picture of it. Lastly, crop the image, right? I don't need to see all this other stuff, the background, the comforter on your bed, your hands. Crop the image. It's not hard. You can do it on your phone. You take an image and there's a crop feature. Crop it to the outside of the slab. It's not that hard. Now, again, this isn't the majority of listings, but I've come across enough of them in the research that I've done for my videos that it just drives me nuts. The second thing, and this is maybe even in the more minority than terrible photos, is when a listing only has a picture of the front of a card. Now, normally I shy away from those listings, especially if it's a card from a certain set where centering of the back sometimes is problematic. Now, I'm not as critical about centering on the back as I am on the front, but I do like a card that has at least decent centering on the back. Now, there was one listing not too long ago. I believe it was for a 1973 Topps Willie Mays that I was looking at. I forget the grade, maybe a PSA 5, but it doesn't really matter. And the seller, I don't know if, I think it was maybe an auction. The seller only had a picture of the front of the card. Well, with 1973 cards, you could have a card that's well centered on the front, but not so well centered on the back. Now, this Willie Mays was centered pretty nice for a PSA 5, I think, but I wanted to see the back of the card. Now, in this case, I messaged the seller, and this was a few days before the auction ended, and I said, hey, could I see a picture of the back of the card? That was maybe a day or two later or something like that, but he sent me a picture of the back of the card, and he actually updated the listing on eBay with a picture of the back of the card. Now, it just so happens that for that particular one, my suspicions were right, and it was off pretty good left to right, and I decided not to go after it. I didn't follow the auction. I'm sure it sold. I don't know if it sold for top dollar because people may not have been as interested in the card because of the centering of the back like myself. I don't know. I didn't follow it after I decided not to go after it. Another example, and this one surprised me a little bit. I think I mentioned it when I showed off the card that I purchased, but I was looking at this 1973 Topps Thurman Munson. Now, I'm going to show this card here on an angle only because I have a light shining here and I want you to be able to see the card. But this is not how I would take a picture of the card. So on an angle here. So as you can see, the front has nice centering on it, but there was no picture of the back of the card. And this was a Probstein auction. Nothing against Probstein. 99%, I think, of their listings have a picture of the front and back. I don't know why this one didn't, but about 3 or 4 days before the auction ended, I sent them a message just like this other seller and said, hey, could I see a picture of the back of the card? And they never got back to me. They never updated their listing with a picture of the back of the card. I don't know if they thought because it's a PSA 7 that the back of the card isn't important. Like I said, there are a lot of cards that Probstein does, and I know they do a lot of volume, but I'm sure they have scanners and different things where they can process images pretty quickly, I'm sure, just because of the volume that they do. Why they didn't show the picture of the back on this one, I don't know. But knowing Probstein, I was like, okay, I'll take a gamble on it. And in this case, the gamble worked out because here's the centering of the back. I was very happy with the centering of the back of this 73. So this was an experience that worked out for me where I didn't see a picture of the back of the card. However, early on, I'd say maybe within the first year of me building my vintage collection, I was taking a look at some 79 Topps cards. And I was looking at this 1979 Topps Dave Winfield. And his 79, if you're familiar with this card, this is a difficult one to find well-centered or without a diamond cut centering to it. Found this one here. It was a PSA 7, but it had decent centering on it. Did not have a picture of the back of the card. Now, again, this was early on with me building my vintage collection. I may not have been savvy enough. I was like, hey, it's a PSA 7. It's centered well on the front. It must be centered at least decently on the back. So I went ahead and I don't know if it was a buy it now or an auction. It was like 3 years ago. Well, I got the card and here's the centering. Hopefully you can see it. It is you can barely see any type of the border. Let me see if I can get that closer. Yeah. I mean, it is razor thin on that border. Like, I don't even know if that considers 90-10. That's 95-5, 97-3. I mean, it's, I'm actually surprised that it didn't get a miscut. I don't know if I guess it could be considered miscut or off center if it's an issue on the back and not just the front. Maybe they decided to, when they got this graded, they didn't want a qualifier. So maybe this one would be like a 8 miscut or 8 off center. I don't know. It's a nice copy on the front. I didn't do anything about it. I didn't ask for my money back. I didn't cause a stink or whatever. It's not a very expensive card. I don't look at the back as often as I do the front, but this one stuck with me. When I was preparing this video, I knew exactly which card that I wanted to show off because I remember this one specifically did not have a picture of the back of the card. And as you can see here, again, it is just way off center. If I had seen the back of this card, I would not have gone after this card. I would have looked for another copy, just waited until I found another copy that suited my overall eye appeal for both the front and the back of the card. So that's my sort of mini rant. For those of you who are seeing this that are putting cards up for sale on eBay or any other auction platform, take the time, take a good quality photo of the front and back of the card, crop it, get your hand out of there, don't throw it on some pillow or mattress or whatever, and just take good quality photos of cards, please. As buyers, I think we would appreciate that, being able to see the cards since we're not there like at a show, and being able to hold the card and look at it at different angles. We want to see what we're buying. Again, I'm not accusing anyone out there of trying to hide flaws or hide something from a potential buyer. I honestly think they're just trying to avoid glare or a shadow. There's better ways to doing it than having your cards at some extreme weird angle and expecting buyers to pay a lot for your card. So would love to know your thoughts in the comments. Have you seen these listings? If so, have you seen this as an opportunity to possibly buy the card for cheap? As a seller, do you think it's a good idea to just have a bad photo for a listing? Would love to know your general thoughts on this topic. And that's enough ranting for me. So that's all I have for you. So until next time, thanks for watching.